Tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai hoki mai, ngā kainihira, ki Wanganui a tātou, me ngā whānau whānui, ki roto i te hui tōpā, Zoom, nau mai hara mai. So just a welcome to everybody, to the councillors around the table who have been, for those of you that have already been in house at the previous meeting, assets and infrastructure. We're still here, good. For those that are part of this committee, welcome to this, our second our October hui. So we've received no apologies.
I just like, I'll have to leave by 3 o'clock if it's still going.
Believe me, we'll be fine.
Okay, thank you. Cool, I love that reassurance.
Thank you. So no apologies received for our hui today. No. We don't have a public forum. Everyone understands and knows the kaupapa around the conflict of interest. So if we're going to get to anything, which I don't feel like we will, you can make those declarations at time. Any changes to the confirmation of order of business? No? Correct. Move on to number 6, which is the confirmation of minutes. And so the recommendation, well, actually what we'll do is we'll go through, if people are happy to go through those minutes, and then we can quickly move on to passing that recommendation. Because I feel like I've missed doing this. So from our hui on the 10th of August, anything on page, or it's page 6 for you, page 7, going on to page 8. Any changes, anything that anyone wants to bring up in there? Page 9. And I just want to say, because through this next part of it, there is a lot of changes that have happened, of course, because of the hui that was had around the spatial planning. So there is a lot of movements in there. So in page 9, anything? Page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17, page 18, page 19, page 20, yeah, page 19, stop. But page 19, yes. Happy to move, thank you. Seconder, please. Seconded by Councillor Wilson. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Chair's report, which is in front of you. Tēnā koutou katoa, good afternoon and welcome to everyone both in chambers and online to our October Policy and Planning hui. As our first hui since the departure of our past CEO, I would like to acknowledge and welcome our interim CE, Kevin Ross, to the table. We are fortunate to have someone of Kevin's experience with us, and I look forward to his support to our council in the Rangitike ratepayers and residents. As we know, our August hui was focused on the draft community spatial plan, and I am thankful that we were able to get from beginning to end of the document with good feed-in and feedback from council members with the guidance of our capable and committed staff. This month's hui is no different, with a number of kaupapa on the table for us to work through, which includes, and I'm going to add a little bit of extra at this very first bullet point, the review of the strategic framework document, or KOWHAI, that has proven to be a simple and effective resource to show at a glance what our council is about, will be worked on in a future workshop. 2, our policy/bylaw project program is another important piece of work we will be looking at. And 3, to recap on our roadmap for the LTP on what we have done and what's still to come. I would like to mihi to all those who that attended the significance and engagement workshop on Tuesday. I know that there were a number of light bulb moments for myself and others, and thank our facilitator Elizabeth Hughes for her excellent mahi in this space. As we know, the Saturday, the 14th of October, is the last day when we can vote in the general election. If you haven't voted yet, I would encourage you to take some time and participate. Pearls of wisdom: do more than belong, participate. Do more than care, help. Do more than believe, practice. Do more than be fair, be kind. Ngā mihi mahana piki te ora hiro. So I'd like to move that my report be received. Second by Councillor Warren. Thank you. Councillor and Councillor. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Kia ora. Reports for information. Oh, actually, is there any questions? Thank you very much. So, reports for information. We're going to hand that over to you, Carol. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to make a point that at the last meeting, it was a massive meeting for this group. So this one is not quite so heavy. And we thank you too for making sure that we finish in time for our next working group meeting. So just none of this is new to council, but what's good practice is just to document, especially for the Policy Planning Committee, updates on the long-term plan. So most of you will be aware of everything that I've documented here, and this report will also feed through to the community committees and the community boards, so that provides them with an update on outcomes from our workshops and also that roadmap that I've included in here as well. Just one point that we will note, just to further explain what you mentioned before, Madam Chair, that the strategic framework, we're still working through that as staff, and so while we wanted to bring it to this group today to go over with you, we need to do a bit more work in-house before that can happen, so it's more likely that that will go to a future LTP workshop. I'm happy to take any further questions on this, if there are any.
Any questions around the table? No? Okay, well, given that there are no questions, there's recommendation that the update on the 2024-34 long-term plan report be received. Thank you, Councillor Duncan, and thank you, Councillor Wilson, seconding. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
8.2, strategy plan development and review update. Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is our regular update on the strategy and review program. I'll take the report as read, but just make a couple of comments. The first one is to update the committee that we have engaged a consultant now to prepare our climate impact strategy and action plan. So we've engaged Becca, and we're starting that process pretty quickly, early next week, looking to get a draft strategy ready ideally before Christmas. So exciting that we're now in the space with that work. That is the work that's been funded by the Better Off money that we received. The next update is on the district plan review. I provided you with a little bit of commentary around that. Now that we've finished our community spatial planning project, we dive right into our district plan review process. You'll be aware that we've already started phase 1, which is our urban growth phase, which we received Better Off funding for. So that's our rezoning of kind of residential land, and we're doing the residential and rural lifestyle provisions. I'm due to start implementation of the national planning standards, which we're required to implement. That's really changing our plan into a format that's been set by the government that all councils have to change their plan formats into. So there's a range of standards that we have to update, including the colours of our zones, the order of our chapters, etc., etc. So I've just started that work. And then we're also starting to plan that wider district plan review program and the priorities for that, with a focus of what we want to achieve prior to when we get reformed. Happy to answer any questions on that, and you've also got Mr. Bernardi in the room as well to talk to any of his strategies.
Thank you.
Just thank you very much. Just under the list of strategies and plans, I know it is in the LTP, but I still think it is worth listing the asset management plan as a plan.
Have you got a response to that?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, we do have under our plans section in the attachment, the roading activity management plan and our Three Waters activity management plans. Were you looking for something additional?
Now, I just see where those lists is there. I'd expect it to be there as well.
Okay.
Anything else from anybody else?
Just on that, with the assets management plan, and I agree with Mayor Andy, the significance of that document. I would feel that just coming out of this morning's meeting, there was a couple of comments which probably related potentially a little bit to that, and I wonder if there maybe is some scope in a workshop environment through assets and infrastructure to have a look at that one, a little bit better understanding, possibly. Just throwing that out there. Don't know what staff's thoughts might be on that. Just thinking on the hoof on that one. So.
Thank you. Happy for any staff to pick up on
Yes.
that, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree. It's interesting this year with the long-term plan. We are updating the Three Waters asset management plan just as a simple update. And the reason for that is because it will move to the entity at some point. It will become their asset management plan. It might look quite different to ours, so we don't want to spend too much effort on that. What is important, though, we are considering all the other activities such as community and leisure, parks and reserves, so all the other assets, our buildings, all the other assets that we own, to have a real good detailed look at those asset management plans. And it's been proposed, and we are trying to figure out how to do it, but to group those together as a social infrastructure asset management plan. And then to try and think, how does that fit into the spatial plan? And how does that help us achieve the spatial plan, the 30-year infrastructure plan, and some other things that's going on with the LTP, but with a more social and well-being view rather than Three Waters and roading. So it will be quite a shift if we can get that right.
I just further to that, Chair, if I may, and I just think there's, for exactly the reasons you explained, I think there's a great deal of value in a more whole of council understanding of where some of these things may shift and fit, particularly around your well-being's comment and some other things. Anyway, but just flagging that for some future thought, possibly.
Have you got anything to add, Cheryl?
So were you asking for the roading activity management plan?
No, not the roadings, just the assets
Just
management.
the assets management
Yeah,
plan, that's
the roading one sits in its own space, I think, ideally, but it's just some of these other things that we might need to consider possibly.
They should be outlined in the roadmap that I provided for the LTP about when that's going to occur. And that is, some of them are coming to the LTP workshop next week. And if they are on the 19th of October, the ones that are not finalised will come to the November one. So if you look at topics under the LTP workshop, on page 18, the AMP, sorry, that's activity management plans or asset management plans, that stands for. Yeah.
Sure, we'll have the conversation during that workshop then.
Thank you. Anything else anyone would like to pick up on?
Just think we need to be very careful about suggesting that it is a given that these plans will be passed to a regional body and Three Waters will exist. There are councils that have got themselves in very serious positions financially because they have made those total assumptions. If National get in, they are saying they will repeal the the resource management changes and Three Waters, and we do not have a clear description yet as to where this goes. We also have obviously some shared relationships in terms of how these asset management plans are actioned in terms of shared services, etc. So we're in a volatile position.
Thank you, Your Worship. Has anyone else got any other comments around particularly this? What I'd like to say is that in no less than 3 days we will know for sure what's going to be happening. So luckily, 3 days. What is it? Thursday, Friday.
3 weeks.
Well, I mean, we'll have a pretty good idea where we're sitting. Pretty good idea of where we're sitting.
Can I just make a comment on the asset management plans? There has been talk as to whether any work should go into the asset management plans going on further than the dates that are given by some councils. And my understanding of this council is that we're still trying to prudently plan as if we were still involved in the process. And if they then go out in 2025, which is the best guess we've got at the moment, but when you look at your plans, it's almost like you've got to look at two plans now, because depreciation will catch up with you somewhere. The amount of the value of the assets going up, so that's will be part of your considerations. But my understanding, although we won't go into huge detail of those that are further out, it's the same as prudent planning that you'd normally do.
Thank you.
Unless we're given a different direction.
Yeah, absolutely concur. Regardless, they're our assets or they're assets to be provided by the community.
Correct.
And we should be able to plan for their future.
Both big communities.
Thank you.
I
Councillor
just
Moore?
want to say a similar thing, that we've just got to take the responsibility to say we're doing the best for our community regardless of, what's happening around us, and that's our responsibility, and plan for the future and plan for our community. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I find this whole discussion not nasty or whatever, but we tend to forget that it affects staffing. We forget the effects that it's going to have on our communities in terms of how these things are actually actioned. And I feel for staff with regard to this. I think it's a really unsettling period.
Thank you, Your Worship. If there is no other input, no one else has got anything else to say. Now, we are looking for that the report of the strategy plan development and review update be received. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Wilson, seconded by... Thank you. Oh, Councillor Wong, you're not on this committee, even though we're happy you're here. Councillor Lambert has seconded. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And can I just say that we welcome Councillor Wong. Unfortunately, you are not able to move or second anything as not being a member of the committee, but we welcome you around the table.
Are you allowed to talk?
Yes.
No, good.
Yes, he is.
It's on there, Johnny.
I'll be letting him talk when we get, if he needs to. 8.3, policy bylaw work program update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is our regular update on our policy and bylaw work program that's led by our corporate planner. I'm happy to report that our new corporate planner is due to start with us after Labour weekend, so we're really excited to have her on board with us. What that has meant has been a delay in this work program. We still have the 3 bylaws and the drones policy is the top priority for this work program that our new corporate planner will start on when they commence with us. I've got a couple of updates there in terms of the smoke-free policy. There was a hui in August that I know His Worship attended and have been engaged in some conversations with one of those attendees who's offered to support us with developing a policy. From a staffing perspective, again, we'll need to relook at capacity once we've got through those really essential bylaw reviews. And then the other update is around the policy on development contributions. There was a recent council workshop where that was discussed with general direction around retaining the current approach, which is to not have development contributions and engage with developers on a case-by-case basis. From a staffing perspective, we'll prepare that, and that has to be consulted on, so we'll do that simultaneous to the long-term plan next year.
Can I just make a further comment on that one? So, as requested by the council, you asked us to have a look at the development agreement that we currently have in place, and Graham Poynton is the one who works most closely with that document. He's started reviewing it for us based on agreements that have been done in the last few years, and he is proposing some changes to those. just from what he's bumped into over the last few years. So in terms of the update to that, we'll bring it back to the council to consider that agreement document as well. So that's definitely underway. We had hoped to do it for the October meeting, but he is proposing quite a few changes, and he wants to give us the context of why that is before we bring it back to council. So it won't be at the October council meeting.
Thank you for that update. Any questions for Katrina at all around this kaupapa?
I hope the new person would love to get engaged in the smoking and vaping policy, which currently we don't have a schedule for, but we face criticism that we're one of only now a handful of councils in the country that hasn't engaged with us.
Thank you. Sure, staff can take that on board. Councillor Duncan?
Yes, and just as a bit of a pushback to that, I sort of feel that this is another one of those policies that's coming down from central government, because with the annual plan processes and the long-term plan processes I've been involved with in the last 4 years, I don't believe I've seen one single request from the community that we prioritise a vape and smoke-free policy. So it interests me. I'm very much a local government person. I'm a bottoms-up type of person. I'd like to see that's where the policy push should come from. So if we haven't got a policy, it's probably because our community is not asking for one at this stage. But if we're going to be embarrassed from the top, well, I'd much rather that.
Thank you from North Cardle.
Little chat.
Anyone else got anything to say around just particularly around this? No? Well, I'd like to ask that somebody move the report for the Policy Boiler Work Programme update. Thank you, Councillor Lambert. A seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Duncan. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Now, unbelievably, we've come to the end of our meeting. However, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go around, I'm just thinking about our last week, which we spent hours in this room, to be honest, because of what we were doing. And I just want to quickly just go around to everybody to see whether or not there's any comments to do with our policy and planning that they would like to make. Thank you, Councillor Loudon.
No comments, thank you.
No comments about anything? Very good to hear.
Well, just one thing.
Yes.
Just before we close, just the smoking and vaping policy. We are charged as a community, well, as a council, for the health and well-being of our community, and that's where that policy might fit.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Loudon. Councillor Duncan? Anything else you would like to?
Just let me have a quick look here. I did want, sorry, I have got a question here. It was around the MOU with the Tūtohinga. Now, that's page 25. No, it's not. Oh, well, I'll leave that for another time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore?
Believe it or not, I've got nothing to say.
I can't believe it.
Worship, thank you.
Yeah, we're in a little bit of a hiatus in terms of the RMA reforms and things going on. But what we will end up with, I think, very shortly is a regional perspective. So it's not only about what we want, but what we think the region should want. And if we don't have sorted out where we sit, then it will be dominated by councils such as Palmerston North that can throw a huge staffing component at this, and you'll find that it will be dominated.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's going to be a whole lot of policy thoughts around who we have relationships with, how it's framed, all of those sorts of things. And it's coming at us like a freight train, but we can't actually start anything quite yet.
Thank you, Worship.
I'll be interested in the Chief Executive's opinion when it gets round to him, if he's included.
Councillor Wilson.
No further comment for me.
Thank you. Councillor Lambert.
Well, no, just to say that it's a pleasure to be part of this committee, and once again, this meeting illustrates we are the beating heart of council.
Councillor Wong, welcome.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just to enlarge on the smoke-free policy and the smoking, smoke-free policy, or whatever it is that we're doing. Just on the back of what His Worship said, that the bigger councils have dedicated a lot of time, resources to various projects, and can we not just steal their policy, have a quick look at it, and change a few places, and rubber stamp and say, here we go. I can imagine it's a fairly general sort of policy saying you can't smoke in parks and have designated smoking areas, which we may have to identify. And also note that there's a move in the industry where likes of Thai people will only get one smoke retailer, one outlet for tobacco. I believe in Martin will probably be the same. So there's changes afoot, quite significant ones, and anything we probably do now will probably be it's an ongoing, and same with the vape laws, because so in some ways the less staff time that needs to be dedicated to this probably be better, because it's a moving feast. I believe that's just my comments from my group.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wong, for a non-member of this committee. That's really great feedback. And thank you. And we have had this discussion around the table. We're leaving this with our staff to sort, and all of the things that you've talked about would have been, I'm sure, taken into consideration in the past. I'd like to go around our staff to see whether or not they've got would like to have an input, and we're going to start with Kevin.
I personally believe that this committee is probably one of the heartbeats of our council, because it's setting the policy and strategy. And from my observation coming in and I am biased probably because I'm a planner historically about 30 years ago, but I do think that you as an organisation are probably short of those type of strategic planners. And Katrina, you're lucky you've got a star here as well. But a lot of those, they actually need support to do that work, and even getting behind on some of these things that you're talking about here. That's a result of people being so ingrained in operational matters, which are yay big for all of local government at the moment. So I understand it is hard to take time out to look at some of these things, but they are what's going to shape your future. And just think of where local government's going, no matter what political parties in it, it's going to head more to the well-being. So who have you got supporting the people that are working in that area? And they may work across the, your general managers, so they can support Arno, or they can support Gayling, or whoever that may be, but they have the intellectual grunt and capacity to do that work and challenge. And I think that future for local government, a summary that Mayor Andy put out in his report, is a real good example where you could be spending days pulling that apart and teasing it apart. Because although they're not all double ticked, it's got two tick boxes, one that aligns with local government and one that aligns with central government. And I thought there'll be some easy wins on here. There's one thing that's got a double tick, and it's minor. So all of those other things need to be discussed and debated. And like Mayor Andy's saying about whose field are you playing in, and the iwi input into that is going to be significant. And where's all of that thought or consideration? You can't do that all yourself. You're one member. You can't influence everybody, nor can Coral, but we need that in the management arm as well to support you and to move us all on that journey too. So that applies in the whole range, the environmental wellbeing. Who's got time to consider what you're actually doing in some of those areas? Who's directing that sort of traffic? So I am quite passionate about this particular committee. I'm passionate about yours as well, but, because it does set your future. And if you're not playing in some of the fields that Mayor Andy's talking about at the moment, you are gonna get lost. And I do know it's a political decision as to which way you want to go or who you're actually gonna align with. And we can only provide you the best information that we can do from the best people that we have. And it is a political decision, but some of them, like iwi alliances or allegiances and catchments, and that all need to go into that consideration as to who your best partner is. And until you start to think about those and debating them at a reasonable high level, it can't give guidance to, you know, your general managers that are doing all the work behind the scenes as well. So I don't know whether that's what you wanted to hear from me, but the smoking and vaping policy, councils are really good at sharing stuff. You know, we plagiarise, we share all that information. You can get it from anywhere. But the reality with that smoking one is Wanganui was doing that probably 12, 15 years ago. You know, so they've been around a long time. So, no, I'm not finished.
Have they finished?
Yeah, finished smoking. Yes, they have. But it's just a matter of prioritising, and that one's obviously slipped down because there's no demand. There was real demand over there at that particular time, and it was a push by the I'm not sure which health authority it was that had a big push from that, but it had a huge support from iwi that I can remember that was saying that there was statistics that said how bad it was affecting your people. So different things for different areas, and I concede that you have to prioritise as to what you're going to do. Anyway,
thank you. Thank you for that, Kevin. I'm going to ask Anna, have you got anything you'd like to add to the hoop?
Thank
You don't have to, but if you'd like to.
Just one thing, I think just one thing that's really important. For the first time since I've been here in this 10-year plan, between myself and Katrina and most of our activities, things are becoming really aligned. And I think from a policy and strategy perspective, and that thing on the board at the back there, it's super important for us to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it and where we're going. And if all of those things are aligned, it's easy to keep track of where we're heading and are we succeeding and the goals that the community wants in 10 or 30 years' time. So it's a big improvement, and credit to you, Katrina.
Thank you. Jolene, have you got anything you'd like to add?
Thank you. I pretty much just second everything that Kevin and Arno have said, particularly about Katrina helping us come aligned with what an effect is operational and the well-beings and strategies.
Thank you, Jane. Kezia, have you got anything you'd like to add?
I'm okay with that.
And Katrina, because I want to finish with you, Carol.
Nothing for me other than supporting that this is the heartbeat of the council. Not
Something that
biased.
assets and infrastructure are still on the roof. Just pointing that out. We haven't left.
You don't have anything without a strategy.
Thank you, Katrina. Carol.
Yeah, probably a few comments too. And look, I take on board your frustration, especially you, your worship, about the smoke-free policy. But it honestly comes down to priorities. You know, you have a look at this massive policy list, the massive vital list that we've got to do, and we just keep delaying and delaying all those. And we did ask, you know, the council, what's your priority? You know, we're happy to throw resource at that policy if that's what you wanted. And the feedback to us was, no, we realise there's a lot more. We've lost our staff member that was doing these, but thankfully we've got someone who's coming on board soon. But that person will get involved in the LTP as well. I mean, it's an absolute massive workload pulling together this LTP. And for staff, we're trying to do exactly what Anna was saying before, making sure that we've got some alignment with where we actually think the organisation is going over the next 3 years in particular. Yeah, that might all get thrown out on the weekend if we get a change of government, and we're all very conscious of that, especially in our project team. It's sitting on our shoulders, you know, but we work with what we know at the time. If we have to backpedal and do something different, then that's what we will do. But all the time we are looking at, you know, where are we going to take this organisation? And it has been a breath of fresh air having Kevin challenge us, in particular on the strategic thinking that we are lacking in this organisation. You know, we've become so operationally focused, and we're just doing our sort of day-to-day and our work as we can, but taking a step back and having a bit more of a helicopter view to be able to give a better long-term plan is going to be a better outcome. So, you know, it's a bit like the cats, you know, I know what's going to happen because once we get this smoke-free policy in place, we're going to get a lot of submissions. We have to go out and consult on it, which costs money and time. And it will be one like the cats that we went out with a few years ago, and everybody's got something to say on it. So it's not going to be as simple as just writing over someone else's policy and then putting that in place. It just doesn't work like that. So, yeah, I hear your frustration, but we're doing the best we can, I suppose, is what we can say.
This isn't the right reply to that, by the way. But in terms of the wellbeings, it would be actually very good to have a policy recognising that we have a right to be in this space. It would also relate to the statutory responsibility we have. But if you look at some of the areas that we start to talk about, such as health, education, sports, housing, economic development, if there was an overarching policy that says we have a right and an obligation to be involved in these subjects, would be useful, because then it stops some of the people saying you should only be involved in road waste rubbish.
Yeah.
You can say, here is the policy. This is
direction by law.
Wellbeing's
I know, and that should, as I said, to relate to the statutory provision, but recognising it as one of the stages of that.
Thank you, Your Worship. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for putting in your little bit of pearls of wisdom into the meeting. And I'd like to also thank the staff. And I feel, for me, I think it's imperative that you be able to say what you need to say. And so I want to thank you for your kōrero. You thought that maybe there was nothing necessarily for you to contribute. There's heaps that you contribute just in the 2 or 3 minutes that you spoke. So I just want to mahi to you for that. And mahi to everybody for worship, those our staff, our team around us, that are helping all of us to help hopefully be better governors, be better staff for this community. So in saying that, we've come to the end of our hui. You started with karakia, I'm assuming, this morning, and I'm going to close us off unless there's nothing else. Well, I'm going to close our hui off with karakia. Thank you, everybody online, for taking the time. I feel like this last small little session is longer than the whole part of the meeting. But hopefully you also got some clarity about some of the things that happens here in council. And just to mihi again to our staff and to the councillors. So he karakia tātou, kia tau, kia tātou katoa. Te atu whai o tō tātou araki a ihu karaiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga, i te wairua tapu, moa ke ake, āmene. Kia ora.
Well, thank you very much.